Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is in a state of highly heated debate surrounding the DLC. There are some regulars who always make the rounds when speculation gets going, like Crash Bandicoot, Sora, or Waluigi. But Sephiroth's recent inclusion has shown me that we should be expanding our horizons to look at pre-existing series in Smash. So today, I'm going to be going through and saying which additional character I would add to each pre-existing series in Smash. This will be a good exercise for me because I legitimately did not see Sephiroth coming. So shout out to anyone who did. Hopefully this will expand our horizons. Let's get into it. From the Mario series, I've got to go with my man Waluigi. He's always been highly debated and incredibly popular not only among speculators but also casual fans of Smash Bros. And Mario in general. That said, while he would probably be my first choice, let me add one more character for the sake of keeping things fresh. I think that adding a Koopa Soldier actually has a lot of potential for a great character. If you mix sliding shell attacks with throwing hammers and some other references to those old games, you have the opportunity for a really great character here. From The Legend of Zelda, we get my #1 most wanted character in Smash of all time, Impa. I think that her more classic Ocarina of Time design or her Age of Calamity design would work great. I hear a lot of people say that she would just be an echo of Sheik, but I really don't see that being the case, especially with Age of Calamity Impa. Sheik from Ocarina of Time represents the old Sheikah ways of fighting, but I think that Impa would be a really cool window to see kind of the new age Sheikah. But as an alternative, people don't talk about Volga from Hyrule Warriors. He has a spear, fire, and can turn into a dragon. Now, I don't want to say that he's totally unlikely because that would be accurate, but a Zelda representative is definitely up there on my wish list. From Kirby, we have a fan-favorite, iconic villain who can put even Dedede to shame. You all know him, you all love him, the man, the myth, the legend, Escargoon. Yeah, alright, I know that this is a total pipe dream of mine, but I just don't feel a ton of attachment to Bandana Dee or Marks or really any other popular Kirby characters. On the other hand, I watched Kirby Right Back At Ya all the time on 4Kids growing up, and I feel a ton of nostalgia for the series. Escargoon is a really goofy pick, sure, but it's my list and I can do what I want. I'm putting him on the roster. Donkey Kong is an easy choice for me, and I would have to go with Cranky Kong. I think that the Kong family in general would be great to add into Smash, but I really love the idea of an old, fragile, elderly monkey actually being incredibly gifted at fighting, and it would be hilarious. And I think he has the opportunity for a really funny and creative moveset. I hear a lot of people talking about Dixie or Funky Kong, both of which are perfectly fine, but to me they just don't stand apart as much from Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong in the same way that Cranky would. I could see Sakurai having a lot of fun with a fake-out trailer here revealing Cranky. He would just be a great pick all around. Earthbound is the first JRPG that really won me over. I love so much about it, from the quirky humor to the bizarre enemies to the innovative way that they handle random encounters. I also think that it's really funny that the game never really took off until Smash Bros. Due to an equally weird marketing campaign saying "this game stinks" with disgustingly scented scratch-and-sniff stickers accompanying the game. Mother 3, or Earthbound 2, features Lucas and takes everything that the first game did and executes on it even better. But unfortunately, us English speakers have to rely on a fan translation because it was never localized. Mother 1, also called Earthbound 0, also exists. That being said, I feel like the franchise is already pretty well represented in Smash, but if I were to add one more character to the game, I think that it would be Duster from Mother 3. His offbeat moveset would make for a really unique playstyle that we don't quite have in Smash. Star Fox is next, and Crystal is an easy pick for me. She's probably the most talked about new addition to the game from Star Fox, and I can see why. Her magic is super cool when accompanied with that close-range combat from her staff. It would be a lot of fun. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ink, why are you showing Pokemon Crystal rather than the actual character? The answer is simple. Searching Crystal on Google or YouTube is not a rabbit hole that you want to go down. F-Zero is a racing game that Nintendo has totally forgotten about, but it does so much right. It's fast-paced and exciting, and Captain Falcon perfectly matches that tone in his playstyle. I think that adding someone else from the games to act as a totally over-the-top foil to Captain Falcon would be fantastic, and Black Shadow is a great pick for that. I'm totally fine with them disregarding the fact that he's almost always in a car, and instead going for the most over-the-top, hype-filled villain stereotype that they can muster. Yoshi is next, and I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played very many Yoshi games, and Birdo freaks me out, so Gilbert the Gooey, next. When speaking of off-kilter, strange games, WarioWare often comes to mind. I grew up playing the games, and yet somehow I can't tell you a single character's name, but I can definitely recognize their designs. 9volt particularly sticks out in my mind, and Ashley also looks familiar. And while I do think that 9volt looks cooler, I couldn't tell you a single thing that either character does, besides the fact that Ashley has a freaking amazing theme song, so I'm gonna put her in. Next up is Ice Climber, which is a series that I know very well and has an abundance of characters to pull from. And when I try to think of someone to add, there has never been anyone more in favor of even trying to do so much as to even want to go do more like for Ice Climbers, and adding them while having to go with it. There we go. For Pokemon, give us Giovanni. I think that him working as a second Pokemon trainer would be iconic and a ton of fun. He has a bunch of different Pokemon over the years, but I think that Rhyhorn, Persian, and Kangaskhan would be a great mix of some of his most iconic Pokemon over the years. To me, there are no human villains from Pokemon nearly as iconic as Giovanni, and he would be a great pick. Shout out to Thermination 2011 for giving me the idea in the comments of a previous video. From Fire Emblem, I'm gonna have to go with some sort of shapeshifter. Whether that's Noe or Tiki or maybe a Laguz from Path of Radiance like Mordecai, I really don't care. I just want to see some diversity in the character selection from a franchise with a ton of diversity that isn't represented properly within Smash Bros. For Game & Watch, just like Ice Climber, there is so much to pull from, and making sense of shifting between the characters, thoroughly having on screen to know if making them could ever try so much as to be a possibility, if ever there was one, and I'm saying yes, and it would be a great fit. And both Rob and Duck Hunt, just like Game & Watch, went so far as to become including from other characters, and having them becoming what they couldn't. If it obviously continued, then we would have to have characters for both of them. And unlike the previous few series, Wii Fit isn't super easy to pull from. Diabetes, the main villain of the franchise, would be pretty hard to represent, so I don't know, maybe an animated balance board would be a decent fit. For me, I think that adding another heavy from Punch-Out would be a great choice, and King Hippo makes a ton of sense for me in that regard. He's big, brutish, and to me seems like a ton of fun to have in the game. Not to mention that if he somehow had a better recovery than Little Mac, I would probably be laughing for the next few years. From the Wii Sports series to accompany the Miis, we have got to include the most intimidating character from Nintendo history, Matt. I mean, just look at this guy. His agility, boxing prowess, and overwhelming Chad energy is almost too much to handle. He's grown beyond just the Mii franchise into becoming his own online presence. Matt could start a YouTube channel today and surpass my subscriber count in less than a week. I guarantee it. I'm putting him in. From Sonic, I hear a lot of fantastic, if obvious, choices all the time. Knuckles, Eggman, Tails, Shadow, Chaos even. All of these would be spectacular picks. For me though, while I would take any of those aforementioned picks, there is one sleeper choice lurking in the shadows that I think would be surprising to everyone, but I would unironically love. I think that it would be absolutely hysterical to get a Chow mech in Smash. Could you imagine the kind of reaction that we'd get from that? Lots of fans have been wanting Sonic characters for years, and then after all this time we get a Chow. Now this isn't entirely a joke. I loved the Chow Garden while growing up, and most of my time in the Sonic franchise has been in service on working in my Chow Garden and Sonic Adventure, and despite the meme value here, I think that this pick would genuinely go back to the roots of my childhood. Speaking of my childhood, Mega Man was a huge piece of that. I played the games, bought the toys, watched the anime, and in general was just a huge Mega Man fan. And while there's a lot of additional super fighting robots like Proto Man, Base, Zero, or one of the Robot Masters, a character who is always present but often goes unnoticed is Mega Man's sister, Roll. In offshoots of the canon franchise, she appears in battle armor, but even within canon, she's shown to be super strong and capable despite never being in actual combat. She usually functions as a housekeeper and would have a great, funny moveset revolving around that, but I genuinely think that she would be a great pick. Mrs. Pac-Man is arguably just iconic as the Pizza Man himself, with her games performing even better. She seems to be a super obvious pick to me, although I've heard that Namco is kinda distancing themselves away from the character for some legal issues, but I'm not totally sure about that. Next up with Splatoon, there isn't a ton of stuff to pull from, and I haven't played it that often, but I hear that the Octolings are really popular, so I'm gonna go with that. From Kid Icarus, I have always loved the design of Magnus, and I think that he would be super cool to see in the game. I don't even mind having another sword character as long as he's implemented in a cool and unique way. Or, you know what, as long as we're sticking with the pantheon that Kid Icarus runs off of, let's take Zagreus from Hades. That's not cheating, it totally counts, shut up. Xenoblade is a series that I don't personally know super well, but I have both of the games on my Switch and I want to play them at some point, and I'm still working through other games at the moment, but I'm getting there. In the meantime, I'm gonna go with Rex to please the fans that have been asking for him. That said, if I was gonna go off of my limited knowledge of the series, I would go with Ricky. I mean, just look at this guy. From Castlevania, I think that having Alucard as a playable character would be fantastic. He was one of my favorite bosses to fight in World of Light, and he's absolutely iconic to the Castlevania series, arguably more so than any single Belmont taken in isolation. He is a very obvious pick to me. I absolutely love the Pikmin series, but my wife recently played through Pikmin 3 on the Switch, so I thought it would be fun to defer to her opinion. I asked her which character she would want in the game, and she said, and I quote, "A revolutionist Pikmin who leads his own resistance and can command his own Pikmin rather than having to rely on a non-Pikmin commander." So, I guess we're getting a Braveheart Pikmin? I don't know, I'm down with it. Next up, we've got Street Fighter, and honestly, it's a shame that we got Ken before Chun-Li. She's arguably just as iconic as Ryu and is used as a secondary face to the series. In fact, Ryu almost never appears on promotional material without Chun-Li right there beside him. I think that she's long overdue for a spot on the roster. Final Fantasy VI is widely regarded as one of the best in the series, if not the best in the series. From this game, few characters are as iconic as Terra. Her long-range magic would add some much-needed diversity to the roster, as well as adding some additional female representation. This is a very easy pick for me. From Animal Crossing, we've got to go with KK Slider. I know that some people would opt for Tom Nook, but frankly, that man is a saint who doesn't deserve to get beat up in the roster. I mean, he gives you a house for next to nothing as a down payment, 0 interest, 0 time constraints or monthly payments. He gives you a job. I don't know, it completely blows my mind that some people call him the Village of Animal Crossing, when he's got to be one of the most giving and generous characters in the series, and potentially in much of Nintendo gaming as a whole. Now, I've got to admit, I've never played Banjo and Kazooie, but I hear Gruntilda mentioned fairly often as a secondary choice, so sure, let's go with that. From Dragon Quest, I think that Slime would be a hilarious addition to the roster, who is arguably more iconic to the series than any one protagonist, and it would be awesome to see him get into the game. Not to mention that it's probably as close as we're ever going to get to having a Digimon in Smash, which is a statement that I really hope ages poorly. From Persona, I think that Aigis from Persona 3 would be a super cool inclusion. She isn't the most prominent character in the story and doesn't join until late in the game, but her design is cool and the idea of having a killer humanoid robot is too good to pass up. From Fatal Fury, I think that Mai Shiranui would be a great pick. Sure, according to Sakurai's rule, she would need to be censored, but that's easy enough to do. Just throw something on like the Zero suit underneath her red robes and she's good to go. Metal Gear is a series that I've only played a few entries of, but I absolutely love it. While Boss would be a cool callback to one of the most iconic games from the series, and D-Dog would be a great pick that makes 0 sense, but I would welcome, to me the choice comes down to 3 characters. Quiet is a favorite of mine who has some really good backstory and moments within the game, but I think that she would be ineligible for 2 big reasons. The choice then is reduced to Raiden or Ocelot, and I think between these two, I would opt for Raiden. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance was actually my entry point to the franchise, so I've got a soft spot for him, although he is never gonna top Ocelot's gun spinning. And to wrap up, we've got Ninjara from ARMS, and from Minecraft, I think that it would make sense to include the thing that has killed me by far the most in the game: fall damage.